You work hard, but somehow your money still disappears. Not all at once. Not in some dramatic, movie-like collapse. It happens quietly. A few subscriptions here. Food deliveries when you're too tired to cook. A paycheck that feels decent for about 2 days. And then suddenly you're checking your bank account with that familiar knot in your stomach again. And what makes it worse is watching other people seem so financially calm. Not necessarily rich. Stable. They don't panic every time an unexpected expense shows up. They don't feel guilty every time they rest. And they're not constantly thinking about money every second of the day. For a long time, I thought being good with money was mostly about income. But the older I get, the more I realize something uncomfortable. A lot of people don't stay broke because they're lazy. They stay broke because of habits they barely notice. Small financial behaviors repeated over and over again until they quietly shape an entire life. And the scary part is, some of these habits actually feel normal because almost everyone around us is doing them too. So in this video, I want to talk about 10 money habits that silently keep people financially stuck. Not to shame anyone, not to pretend life is easy right now, but because once you see these patterns clearly, you start making different decisions without forcing yourself to become a completely different person. And honestly, that's usually where real financial progress begins. The first habit is paying yourself last. This one sounds simple, but psychologically, it changes everything. Most people treat saving money like it's optional. They pay rent, they pay bills, they buy food, they handle subscriptions. They go out just this once, and then whatever survives at the end of the month becomes savings, which usually means nothing survives. Because money naturally expands to fill whatever space you give it. If your mindset is, I'll save whatever is left, your brain unconsciously gives spending permission to take priority. And modern life makes this incredibly easy. There's always something urgent, something stressful, something you deserve after a long week. So instead of building savings automatically, people accidentally train themselves to consume automatically. The shift happens when you reverse the order. Even if it's small, paying yourself first changes your identity. Because now saving isn't leftover behavior. It becomes a non-negotiable expense. And honestly, the amount matters less than the consistency in the beginning. A person saving 10% every month for years usually builds more stability than someone waiting for the perfect time to save huge amounts. That perfect time almost never comes. Life keeps moving. The second habit is normalizing bad debt. And this one is dangerous because society has made debt feel emotionally harmless. You can finance almost anything now. Phones, shoes, vacations, furniture, food. Everything is designed to make the monthly payment feel small enough to ignore. But mentally, debt does something subtle. It steals future peace to fund present comfort. And when this becomes a lifestyle, people stop asking, can I afford this? They start asking, can I afford the monthly payment? That's a completely different question. Someone earning a decent income can still feel trapped because so much of their future money is already promised away before they even wake up. And the emotional weight adds up quietly. You feel it when payday arrives, but doesn't feel exciting anymore. You feel it when an emergency happens, and your first reaction is panic. You feel it when work becomes less about purpose and more about survival. Now, obviously, not all debt is equal, but getting comfortable with constant consumer debt keeps people emotionally exhausted because they're permanently living ahead of themselves financially. And eventually, that pressure starts affecting decisions far beyond money. It affects relationships, confidence, sleep, freedom. People underestimate how expensive constant stress really is. The third habit is never building a buffer. A lot of financial anxiety isn't caused by being poor. It's caused by being fragile. There's a difference. Someone can earn a decent income and still live one bad week away from disaster. One medical bill, one car repair, one delayed paycheck, and suddenly everything collapses. That's exhausting psychologically because your nervous system never fully relaxes. You're technically surviving, but emotionally you're always bracing for impact. This is why emergency savings matter more than people think. Not because it makes you rich overnight, but because it buys something incredibly valuable: breathing room. A small financial buffer changes how you experience everyday life. You stop reacting to every inconvenience like it's a catastrophe. You stop making desperate decisions under pressure. You stop feeling trapped every single month. And no, building this isn't glamorous. Nobody posts screenshots of slowly saving emergency money. But honestly, financial peace is usually built through boring consistency, not dramatic breakthroughs. The fourth habit is lifestyle inflation. This one traps almost everyone at some point. You start earning more, and suddenly your standard of living quietly expands with it. A better apartment, a more expensive car, more takeout, more subscriptions, more convenience. And individually, none of these purchases seem outrageous. That's why this habit is sneaky, because your income increases, but your financial stress somehow stays the same. Sometimes it even gets worse. I've seen people double their income yet still feel constantly behind financially, because every raise immediately became permission to upgrade their lifestyle. And psychologically, this happens because humans adapt fast. What once felt luxurious quickly starts feeling normal. The expensive coffee becomes routine. The nicer apartment becomes expected. The upgraded lifestyle stops feeling exciting. But the bills remain. And then people get trapped maintaining a life they no longer even enjoy that much. This doesn't mean you should never enjoy your money. Of course you should. But there's a huge difference between improving your life intentionally and unconsciously increasing expenses every single time your income grows. Wealth is often less about how much you earn and more about how much space exists between your income and your lifestyle. The fifth habit is using shopping as emotional relief. This one has almost nothing to do with math. It's emotional. A stressful day at work, feeling behind in life, loneliness, burnout, comparison, and suddenly buying something feels comforting for a moment. Not because the object itself changes your life, but because purchasing creates temporary emotional stimulation. You feel in control. You feel rewarded. You feel distracted. Until the feeling fades. Then guilt shows up afterward. And honestly, companies understand this psychology extremely well. That's why everything is optimized to remove friction. One-click payments, instant delivery, limited time offers, flash sales. Modern spending isn't just about products anymore. It's about emotional regulation. And once you notice this pattern, you start asking yourself a different question before spending. Am I buying this because I truly value it? Or because I'm emotionally tired? That question alone can save people thousands over time. The sixth habit is thinking small to feel safe. A lot of people focus only on cutting expenses because it feels more controllable. And yes, managing spending matters. But there's a limit to how much you can shrink your life. At some point, constantly optimizing tiny expenses becomes mentally exhausting. You can only cancel so many subscriptions. You can only skip so many coffees. Eventually, the conversation also has to become, how do I increase my earning ability? And this doesn't mean becoming a millionaire overnight. It could mean learning a higher income skill, negotiating better pay, starting a small side income, building something slowly online. Because financially, there's usually more upside in increasing income than endlessly squeezing yourself small. The goal isn't to become obsessed with hustle culture. The goal is reducing financial pressure so your life stops feeling permanently tense. There's a huge emotional difference between surviving and having options. Options change how you think, how you plan, how you move through life. The seventh habit is ignoring where your money actually goes. A surprising number of people are scared to look at their finances clearly. And honestly, I understand why. Sometimes the numbers trigger shame, or regret, or anxiety, so people avoid checking. But avoidance creates even more stress because uncertainty is mentally heavier than reality most of the time. When you actually sit down and track spending honestly, patterns become obvious very quickly. You realize how much convenience costs, how much impulse spending adds up, how often boredom turns into consumption, and awareness changes behavior naturally. Not perfectly, not instantly, but consistently. Because once your brain sees the truth in black and white, it becomes harder to unconsciously repeat the same patterns forever. Financial clarity may feel uncomfortable initially, but confusion is far more expensive long term. The eighth habit is waiting too long to invest. A lot of people delay investing because they think they need huge amounts of money first, or perfect knowledge, or perfect timing. But investing is less about brilliance and more about time. And this is where psychology becomes important again. Humans struggle to value distant rewards emotionally. Saving and investing often feel boring because the reward isn't immediate. Meanwhile, spending gives instant dopamine. So naturally, the brain leans toward short-term comfort. But compound growth quietly rewards consistency over intensity. Someone investing reasonable amounts steadily over many years often outperforms someone waiting for the perfect moment that never arrives. And no, this isn't about becoming obsessed with stocks or checking charts every hour. Actually, the healthiest investing mindset is usually the calmest one. Slow, steady, boring, which sounds unexciting, until you realize boring habits are often what create long-term freedom. The ninth habit is constantly comparing your life to other people. This habit destroys financial peace faster than almost anything else, because comparison changes your definition of enough. Suddenly, your car feels embarrassing, your apartment feels small, your progress feels slow. Not because your life became worse overnight, but because someone else's highlight reel entered your brain. And social media makes this incredibly difficult now. People casually display luxury lifestyles every single day. Vacations, designer clothes, expensive dinners, success. But what you usually don't see is the debt, stress, insecurity, or financial instability behind some of it. A lot of people are performing wealth, not building it. And chasing appearances financially is one of the fastest ways to stay trapped, because fake wealth focuses on looking rich. Real wealth focuses on building freedom quietly. Those are very different goals. One needs validation. The other creates peace. And the final habit is believing you've already failed. Honestly, this might be the most damaging one of all. A lot of people stop trying financially because they feel too far behind. Maybe they made mistakes in their 20s. Maybe debt piled up. Maybe life simply became more expensive than expected, so they emotionally disconnect from the idea of progress altogether. And once that happens, people start making decisions from hopelessness instead of intention. But financial improvement is rarely one giant life-changing moment. Usually it's smaller than that. A different habit, a calmer decision, a little less emotional spending, a little more patience, a little more awareness. And over time, those small shifts compound into a completely different life. Not perfect, not stress-free, but more stable, more intentional, more peaceful. Because the truth is, most financially secure people are not perfect with money. They just built better systems than their old habits. That's it, and honestly, that should feel encouraging. You do not need to become a completely different person overnight. You just need to stop repeating patterns that quietly work against you. Little by little, month by month, decision by decision. At the end of the day, money affects more than just numbers in a bank account. It affects how you sleep, how you think, how trapped or free you feel inside your own life. And in a world constantly pushing people to consume more, compare more, and panic more, learning to manage money calmly is almost an act of self-protection. Not perfection, not obsession, just awareness. Because financial peace usually isn't built through one massive breakthrough. It's built through small, consistent habits repeated quietly for years. And if you've recognized yourself in some of these habits, that doesn't mean you're doomed. It means you're aware now. And awareness is where change begins. Slowly, calmly, one better decision at a time.